Hey guys, this is Dylan from American Concealment Solutions. As you guys know by now, we have the ACS Cipher, which is a newer holster that we made. It's a multi-fit holster, completely one of a kind, that allows you to carry probably every pistol that you have in your safe right now, as long as it's a compact or full-size firearm, with any flashlight you'd like or no flashlight at all, any optic you like, or any muzzle device like a compensator or threaded barrel, anything like that. The Cipher will work for you. It allows you to carry with any kind of belt attachment that you want because of its template, universal template like that right there, all those holes. Allows you to carry with a wedge. It's extremely usable. It's one of the most, it's probably the most usable holster that you can possibly get. Now, the real question is, how did we get to this? In a fairy tale setting, you might think that, hey, you know, we came up with the idea or we dreamt it in our sleep and we woke up and we went out into the workshop and these came to be. And that sounds really cool, but that's not what actually happened. It took a lot of time and a lot of R&D and a lot of different iterations before we got to something as cool as this. So, kind of to start off, talking about the history of the Cipher, we started American Concealment Solutions not just to be a basic Kydex holster company. That was something we wanted to offer because we have, you know, we have an idea on what makes really good Kydex holsters, and we feel that we kind of have a higher standard in terms of what makes a good holster. But we wanted to actually solve problems, hence the name Concealment Solutions. That's ACS that's why we named it that way, because we wanted to make products that weren't available for concealed carriers like ourselves. We carry all the time. It's just what we do. That's like one of the things that we're really, you know, passionate about, is concealed carrying constantly. So we wanted to make a holster that was multi-fit, universal, whatever you want to call it, to where it accommodates a lot of different guns, but we also wanted it to accommodate all the different flashlights, models, different muzzle devices and optics that modern handguns are starting to have, because that's the future, you know, that's the way that's going in concealed carry. But buying holsters sucks. So we wanted to make it to where we could get one holster, and that future-proofs us from any aftermarket or any gun models that we get in the future, to where we can immediately buy that gun or buy that flashlight or buy that accessory, period, and have a means of carrying it, because that's a big deal for us. So that brings us to, we came up with that idea, we wrote down some ideas and wrote down some schematics, and we made something that we call the Abomination. So this is what we, I don't know if shamefully is a word, but this is what we call the Abomination. And we didn't really have that name for it until we decided to film the history of the Cipher, so we gave it the Abomination name just because it looks terrible. And we know that. I mean, it was definitely an R&D project. This is not something that we wanted to, this is more of a proof of concept kind of holster that we wanted to do. And it did give us proof of concept in a couple different ways. So this is made out of normal Kydex, nothing fancy there. It doesn't have any magnets embedded into it like the normal Cipher does. But it does have a pretty general similar setup to the Cipher, aka the retention settings are up here by the sight channel, like the Cipher that you know today. It has a bigger channel here for the flashlights, just to accommodate multiple different flashlights. It has a claw over here, which is completely different. We had to, seeing as how we didn't need to use retention washers here, we just used the arm of the mod wing and kind of pushed the Kydex up just to get the ride height in alignment with the belt attachment. Terrible. I put soft loops on this just because I'm an absolute strumpet for dual soft loops. That's just my preference of belt attachment. And of course it has, you know, open bottom like all ACS holsters have to accommodate the muzzle devices and stuff like that. The problem is with the Abomination, like we're calling it for this video, is that the retention of this is reliant on the ejection port of the firearm. As you can see, there's a slight dimple there in that holster, and that presses into the indentation of the ejection port, this right here. So for instance, the problem with it is that yes, it allows you to carry multiple different flashlights, multiple different optics, because it has this absolutely god-awful optic cut that works but is disgusting looking. And it's also open bottom to allow your muzzle devices, but it's reliant on the specific firearm model that the holster is made for, because not all ejection ports are the same size, and not all ejection ports are the same in position, right? So this does work, and it falls in and it snaps in and it's reliable. This is a loaded gun and it has a TLR1 on it, and we could go from the TLR1 to something like an X300, for instance. Doesn't really matter what light. It can go to mod light, whatever, and it still works, and there's still openings. So it works in a regard of you can carry different flashlights, you can carry different accessories, but you're still dependent on this being a Glock 19 only holster. And that kind of defeats the initial purpose of what we wanted to do as a company. So again, like I said, this was a proof of concept. This kind of told us, hey, it's possible. It looks horrible. It's not fixing all of it, but we're going in the right direction, and we need to keep going in that direction. And so that really helped us stay motivated. And so that led us to the next phase of the path to the Cipher. And we didn't come up with the name yet, so the next one is called the Redacted. This is the Redacted, and it's pretty much just as ugly as the Abomination is, but just in different ways. It's a little bit more smoothed out, and you could definitely see there's a lot more of the Cipher kind of shape, except it's just, I mean, just look at it. I don't need to explain how terrible it looks. But this is the next step in the path to the Cipher, the road to Cipher, that we got even more of a proof of concept. So to explain this a little bit more, it's very similar to, it's kind of the missing link between the Abomination and what the Cipher is today, to where we implemented magnets for the first time in the holster to see if magnets were the proof of concept that we needed. So we used magnets instead of the retention of the ejection port, and that fixed the whole being chained down to just the gun model. Now with this holster, you can carry a lot of other different gun models and gun makes in the same holster, while also having the freedom to carry with or without any kind of light you want, and optic compatibility and muzzle device and all that kind of stuff. It fit all the criteria that we needed for a truly universal holster with accessories and gun model. So kind of talking about the overall schematics of this, it has the same kind of thickness of Kydex, the 093 Kydex. We used thicker Kydex for all of our holsters. We did a one-piece design to where for the Abomination, it's two different sheets of Kydex, bam and bam, and they're pressed down like this. With the Redacted, and we called it the Redacted just because being in the gun industry, we're legally obligated to use the term redacted at least once a year. So that's why we named this the Redacted, to be like vague and, you know, pretentious about it. But single sheet of Kydex folded over taco style, but just the opposite way to where the retention posts are up here by the side channel, by the slide, like all of the Cipher, you know, evolutions. Open channel here for any size light that you want. The claw is still a mod wing, but it's screwed onto the wall of the flashlight channel, and it's kind of off at an angle, but it was still a very effective means of concealment. Not as effective as the Cipher, because nothing conceals better than the Cipher, quite frankly, but this did a little bit better of concealment, and it was kind of at an angle there, but it did really well. And now I did have dual soft loops on this, but I took them off to put them on different things. But that's what the attachment was. And so as you could see, it utilized magnets, but they're like the adhesive strip magnets, and we put them on the inner walls of this of the inside of the holster, and you can probably see that right there. There's magnetic strips on each side right where the slide is. And so what that did is that did something very similar to what the Cipher does now, is that when the magnets come in contact with the Cipher, you got yourself a pretty smooth retention holster. And like I said, right here, this is the TLR1. We could switch that out for the X300, and it makes absolutely no difference in retention. And you can go without a light at all and still have retention. So this is where we got the full proof of concept for the Cipher. We figured out, hey, if we set the holster up like this, it works. If we have magnets going alongside that are strong enough, it works. But there were some issues. The first one was just, it looks ugly. It's terrible looking, right? Like, so we had to make sure we clean that up to make it presentable, because we don't, you know, this isn't professional looking. You know, this sight channel is all bubbled, not sight channel, but this, you know, spine right here is all bubbled out, and it's just an amorphous blob. So, you know, we had to pretty it up. We liked the overall shape. It's very ergonomic for a concealed carrier. It's, you know, rounded in all the right areas, and it's very just space friendly for carrying, especially for it being able to accommodate as many firearms and stuff as possible. But it had some work to do. The one thing that we didn't like was the lack of reliability in these strip magnets. One, they have to make contact with the pistol slide, and that would kind of shave the surface of the magnets a little bit, and we were kind of worried about that compromising the strength later on, like after like long-term extended use. And they're like soft magnets, you know, they're flexible, and they have the adhesive backing and stuff, and they're kind of meant for like fridges and stuff. But they're very strong, don't get me wrong, but with them being exposed, it led to, we've had problems. I mean, I carried this specific holster for, I probably have over 1,000 hours of like hard carry use of this holster. So don't get me wrong, it's a very reliable holster. But after extreme use, like I put through it, the magnet started to like crack and chip off and stuff like that through drawing and stuff. So with an exposed magnet, it gave us a lot of concern, to where nothing catastrophic happened during the times that I was carrying this holster, but it just kind of concerned us that it just wasn't working for the long haul. So hit the ThinkPad again, and we came up with something that is a lot more like the Cipher. And that would be the actual Cipher, the Cipher Mark 1 or Mark 0. I don't know, whatever sounds cooler. So. Now this is the first official Cipher. We went from the Abomination to the Redacted to the actual Cipher. This is when we came up with the name. This is where, you know, this model right here looks very, 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 very reminiscent, almost identical to the ciphers that we sell today that you can get right now. And they're very subtly, the Mark II, or whatever you want to call it, is very subtly different. And if I didn't explain it to you, you probably wouldn't be able to figure out what was different about it. But we're going to explain that here. As you can see, we switched to a dual layer design to where there's 2 sheets of Kydex in this holster. And why we did that, one, is because they look absolutely cool, but they're very, very durable because it's a dual layer holster. But we also sandwiched 2 magnets, neodymium magnets, in between the layers of Kydex. And they're not the little flimsy magnets, they're actually magnetic bars. They're big magnet bars. So with that allows way more reliability, way more durability, and it's a very, very smooth draw now, because you're only allowing it, when you're passing the gun into it, it's just the friction of the Kydex. So it's very smooth. The draw is tremendous with the Cipher. Still, open bottom design, open mouth, optic cut. The retention posts are still up here, just like every iteration is. This one has a couple notches into it because when we first made the Cipher, we were playing around with different retention post spacings, and we noticed that right there is the perfect ride height to get the optimal retention. So there is a little bit of blemish there, but it's my own personal holster that I've used. So it's not a big deal. We also have the non-light bearing post holes that we tested as well to test the non-light bearing feature of the Cipher, which we didn't have for the Redacted or the Abomination, by the way. So that's something that we fixed as well because that was lacking. This is where we introduced the universal belt attachment setup here, to where you can now attach, your DCC clips, your dual soft loops, your mono blocks, your regular soft loops, all kinds of different things, Alti clips. This template allows you to do that. And we also introduced this claw. This is the Alti clip tuck wing, and it is by far the most superior concealment claw out there. It's made of, first off, it's made of complete steel. It's just all steel. It's a steel bar, the arm, everything, and it's extremely adjustable to where you can change the ride of this cleat to make it the perfect lineup for whatever belt attachment method you're using for that time. So it's extremely customizable, and it doesn't get in the way of any, you don't have to drill extra holes, or we don't have to have extra hardware on this holster by having this claw. And it's removable too, so that's a plus too. If you just don't want to have the claw on and whatever, it's completely removable, good to go. It's awesome. Now, there were some issues with this setup that we have here. Everything worked very well, especially for firearms like Glocks, for instance. Just to kind of show proof of concept, here's the Glock 19 without any light on it. We can go from that to a X300, for instance, carry no problem, to the TLR1 and any other light in between. I mean, I've carried with a TLR8, I've carried with a TLR7, carried with no light, not O light, but no light, which they are the same in value. But it has that universality. But like I was saying, this model, this specific evolution of the Cipher worked extremely well with guns with slides that are completely flat and straight like this. The problem with this holster that we ran into was the guns with the slides that kind of dimple in or are kind of at an angle, like the FNs. It's not just a straight slide like this. The slide's kind of at an angle. The Smith & Wesson M&Ps, the slides kind of dimple up like this. They have very narrow slides, to where how this is set up is it will make contact with the side of the slide of a Smith & Wesson M&P here, but it won't meet with the slide properly on this side, just because this side's flat and that side has the dimple in it. So the retention was very spotty on those kind of guns. And one thing that is another downside is this evolution of the Cipher was not ambidextrous. It didn't have the template on both sides. So one, it wasn't an inside the waistband and outside the waistband holster. It was just an inside the waistband holster. And two, it wasn't interchangeable on ambidextrous. It wasn't ambidextrous. Now, that might not be something that you value, but it's something that we really wanted to accomplish, because we wanted to accomplish as much as we possibly could with this holster. Because when we released the Cipher to the public, we wanted it to be something that solved as many problems as humanly possible. So we sat down once again and we wrote out the issues that this specific iteration of the Cipher had, and we came to what you know and love right now, and that is the ACS Cipher Mark II, Gen 2, Alpha 2, whatever you want to call it, but the final evolution of the Cipher. Now this is the Cipher that you know and love, the Cipher that you're probably carrying, or the Cipher that you're interested in getting. This has the same kind of features as the original Cipher that we made, right? The dual layer design, the magnetic bars, the template up front with the universality of carrying different kinds of belt attachments that you want to do, the non-light bearing bars, so you can go from a firearm with a light to no light at all if you don't want to, the open bottom for your muzzle devices, whatever you want to do. And we also added the option to add a wedge. If you want to have a concealment wedge to make things just a little bit more comfy, if that's how you want to ride, it's already pre-drilled to add like an RCS wedge. Now, we fixed this pretty easily. It wasn't that big of a deal, but we mirrored this universal template for belt attachments on both sides. So right here, we have it on this side as well. So if you are a lefty, you can just unscrew this assembly if you'd like and switch everything over to that side. And there you go. You can put the claw over there, you can put your belt attachment over there, and you have an ambidextrous holster. The other thing that it did is it allowed it to be inside the waistband and outside the waistband, to where you can have an inside the waistband setup like this, and then at the same time you could flip it around and put something like a tech lock on the back of it like this, to where you have a outside the waistband holster for the price of one single holster. And then I could put, you know, vice versa, I could put these belt attachments on here and, you know, tuck it in my pants. Lastly, by doing that, we have now created a symmetrical fitting of the magnets, to where there's a dimple there that comes out and the dimple there that comes out, and it's completely symmetrical. And so now you could take something like the M&P, right, which was a big deal for us. As you could see, the slide of the M&P, it dimples in. It's not just a flat wall here like a Glock, right? It has a dimple to where it kind of comes up. But now, because of the setup of this, we have a very beautiful fit. And this doesn't have a light on it, and you can add something like an X300, which I carry very often on this gun because it looks absolutely fucking phenomenal. And you have that kind of setup, and you can go to the you can go to the TLR1 and so forth and so on. But this fixes the issue with not being able to fit as reliably with Smith & Wessons, with the FNs, with you know, different Walthers, like the PDP has a slight angle of the slide, the you know, CZs, stuff like that. This Cipher, the Cipher that we now, you know, offer, it fixed all of that, and it allows you to carry any of those guns just as reliably as any other, and it does very, very well. It has all the features that we've already talked about. It has extreme customizable options, not only in the hardware, but with the actual, you know, dual layer design. You know, when you're talking about the colors and the patterns that are available, it's unmatched. So from a disgusting abomination all the way to the last holster that you will ever need, that is the history of how we got to the ACS Cipher. Now, if you are interested in trying out your own ACS Cipher and kind of seeing it for yourself, you can order on our website at americanconcealment.com. Keep in mind that every Cipher holster comes with free shipping. It's completely on us. And it also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, because we understand that this is new technology. This is something that hasn't really been traveled much in terms of how this holster is set up. I understand how it makes people weary of giving it a try. Well, we take that worry out. 30 days, you don't like it, get a hold of us, send it back to us, and you get a 30-day money. You get your money back. It's not a big deal at all. So, yeah, order your stuff today. Carry your firearms. I don't care if you're using an ACS holster or not. Carry every chance that you get. It's a crazy world out there, and we all need to be armed. So anyways, I'm Dylan from ACS, and we safeguard the tools of liberty. Thanks, guys.